This painting, called Cyclops by the French painter Odilon Redon, definitely looks weird. Many might find the single eye stare of the Cyclops at a sleeping woman creepy, and they're not wrong. But the story behind this scene is way more creepier than the painting you see. In this episode of Artsight, I'll tell you about this bizarre painting, the horrible story, and the painter behind this painting. Let's start with the painting first. I think it goes without saying that if you hear some strange sounds outside in the middle of the night and wake up to find a one-eyed monster staring at you with this creepy smile, you would not like that. Well, the woman sleeping here is not exactly sleeping, but hiding from this one-eyed giant named Polyphemus. And by looking at the creepy expression on the face of this giant, we can agree that she is not overreacting. But there is something else as well. Why has the painter made this painting in this way? I'm not talking about the creepy look of the Cyclops or the woman sleeping, but the borders are ill-defined. You can hardly make out where something starts and where it ends. The proportions are all over the place. Take a look at the mountain. They appear to be small. The point is, the perspective is completely distorted. Take a look at the paintings made by Redon's contemporaries, where they were making realistic paintings with extreme attention to perspective and proportions. Redon was doing something opposite. I mean, it's very hard to say what kind of art style this is. If Impressionism had a baby with Expressionism, then the baby grew up with Surrealism, you'd get a painting like this one. But there's a reason behind all of this. There is a reason why there is no defined structure to anything here. It's because the artist wants to create a dream-like state, a dream where you only remember one or two things and the rest is just a hazy blur. You get an idea about the hill in the background or the flowers in the foreground, but that's all. And the one thing you definitely remember? That's the face of Polyphemus. He is definitely not a looker, but he must have a great heart, right? He looks innocent, a gentle giant. Well, that's not the case here. This giant is not gentle, and this is not a dreamlike scene, but a nightmare. Let's see why the story behind Polyphemus and the woman hiding here, Galatia, gets from creepy to gory. The origin and stories of Cyclops in the Greek mythology are not consistent. Some stories, such as Homer's Odyssey, describe Cyclops as wild, primitive giants without any abilities to understand anything. They're more like creatures who live in caves and are shepherds by profession. Another writer, around the same time, Hesiod, described Cyclops as strong and dumb creatures who are blacksmiths by profession. And while usually we assume that Cyclops just have one eye, many paintings have shown them to have more than one eye. Now, the reason for that is the term Cyclops does not mean single eye but round eye, something that can be confirmed with this painting. There are a lot of stories about Cyclops that tell us about the nature and intelligence of these creatures. The most famous being of Polyphemus, this one, in the story Odyssey. But that's a completely different story with no mention of Galatia. I'll link this excellent video in the description so that you can watch it if you want to know more about them. But the story that concerns this painting is the unfortunate, tragic, and gruesome love story of Polyphemus, the giant Cyclops, and Galatia. She is one of the 15 nereids or sea nymphs. This story comes from the Greek poet Ovid's Metamorphoses. And by the way, if I say that this is a love story, do not expect it to be the next Notebook. You'll see why. So the Cyclops you see here, Polyphemus, is madly in love with Galatia. And for obvious reasons, Galatia does not share the same feelings. In fact, she is devastated by this unwanted affection from Polyphemus. Here's what she tells Skyla about the whole situation. At least, O Virgin Skyla, you're not wooed by a relentless breed of men, and you can reject them without fear, as you do. But I, whose father is Nereus, and whose mother is sea green Doris, I, though protected by a crowd of sisters, was not allowed to flee the love of Polyphemus, the Cyclops, except through sorrow. So what happens is Polyphemus, despite being a dumb and wild creature, composes a poem for Galatia, which is very disturbing. Basically, it's him saying, "You're beautiful and I love you, but if you don't love me, I might kill you." This Cyclops is the ultimate nice guy. So here's the story. Galatia is in love with Acis, who is also in love with Galatia, but Cyclops is obsessed with Galatia. Here's the poem Polyphemus writes for Galatea expressing his love. I'll put the entire poem here, but I want to point out the important parts of this poem. What I want to show is how the tone of this love poem changes, and it becomes more of a passive-aggressive complaint about why Galatea should love him. In the first part, Polyphemus praises Galatea, whiter than snowy privet petals, taller than slim alder, more flowery than the meadows. But notice at the end of this poem, it comes with a condition. He says that all the praises could have been valid if she would not run away from him. I can see why she would run away from him. And then the poem turns into a series of jibes at Galatea. He calls her an untamed heifer, which is a virgin cow and perhaps one of the most insulting things you can call a woman. But he does not stop there. You can see the love in his poetry getting rancid. Oh Jesus, a pregnant bear? Imagine getting a similar letter from an obsessed lover with such undertones. You're definitely calling 911. But sadly, Galatea did not have a phone, and the story is about to turn from scary to gruesome. Polyphemus explains how large and strong he is, and he tries to explain how his wild appearance is actually beautiful. I mean, self-love is always good, but then he adds this. But why? Rejecting Oh, wait, I don't think the Cyclops talked like this. But why? Rejecting Cyclops, loves Aces, and prefer Aces' embrace to mine, though he is pleased with himself and what I dislike pleases you too. Galatea, let me just have a chance at him. Then he will know how strong I am as I am big. I'll tear out his entrails while he lives, rend his limbs and scatter them over the fields and over your ocean so he can join you, for I am Now that is dark. And if you think he was bluffing, he wasn't. He actually found both of them behind a rock, got very mad, and hurled a rock at Aces, crushing him completely. And what did Galatea do? Galatea jumped into the water while Aces literally screamed for help. He screamed in pain and agony. Oh, by the way, this is a love story that we are talking about. But the good part is that Aces somehow survived. He turned into a river god in his full glory. Or at least this is what Galatea told Skylar. The way the last words were spoken, it leads me to believe something different. And that was the story. The love story shown in this painting. But what about the artist? We saw that this is not how Cyclops were depicted, like ever. So why did Odilon Redon go with this style? Redon had a difficult childhood. He considered himself a sad and weak child who sought out the shadows. This is the reason why he started with these dark, monochromatic images that often focused on the eyes. The eyes conveyed a lot, and the artist knew that. But then his style changed from a monochromatic palette to a mix of color that created hazy, dreamlike paintings. Take a look at how his painting style changed completely, giving birth to something new and radical. And this painting is special because it sort of mixes all the stages of Redon's artistic styles. You have the eye that was present in his monochromatic phase, you have the monsters during the middle phase of his art style, and finally the vivid yet hazy colors that cover the canvas. All of this in one single painting. The bizarreness of this painting and the subject is not unintentional. Redon wanted to show the Cyclops in the way he was portrayed, a small-brained creature who is easily driven by his emotions. The Cyclops is not cunning or evil. Like a wild animal, this Cyclops is all too animal. A huge thanks to all of my subscribers. It means a lot to me. And if you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I bring interesting stories about these interesting paintings. And after all, we all need some art in our hearts, right? Till we meet next time, take care and have a great day.